Yes, we are living in a culture of death. Everything that's going on around us societally is leading to death. Open borders, pandemics, GMOs, abortion, the devaluation of our currency, death. Economic death, which brings economic or physical death to people who cannot afford to exist any longer. Rising medical costs, death for people who can't afford it. Toxic food full of chemicals that are poisoning us, death. Homosexuality, death. They cannot reproduce. People that are trying to change their sex and pretend that they are something that they are not by cutting off body parts and taking in chemical substances to deform themselves. I feel sorry for them. My heart goes out to them. But it's death. You will not be able to reproduce. You have bought the lie. Death. Satanism. Death. What else? DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. The way the left has turned it into racism, death. Death of a culture. There's an all-out attack on the family, upon Christianity, upon the Bible. Death, death, death. Attacking the family. Attacking maleness. Toxic masculinity. White privilege. Death. Racism. It's all death. Global warming. Geoengineering. Death. When I say global warming, I'm talking about the mantra, the trope that is man-caused and a result of too much carbon going into the universe or into the atmosphere. Death. What's the outcome of it? Wealth redistribution. Taking from the rich or from people like me and giving it to other countries and other people. And promoting socialism and leftism and Marxism. Death. All of those isms, not capitalism. Well, there is a thing called greedy capitalism, oligarchic capitalism, and most of them are communists, and that's death too. I'm not talking about that. I'm a businessman. I've been a businessman for 50 years. Self-employed businessman. That's capitalism. I work hard, I produce a good service, and people pay me for it, and I make the world a better place. And I give employment, and I support the economy, and support my family, and support the ministry. That's life. When I talk about death, I'm talking about the big multi-billionaire oligarchs, most of them. They're promoters of death. Our government, Joe Biden, the Democrats, and many of the Republicans, promoters of death, they don't care about us. Open borders, child sex trafficking, pornography, death. All promotes death. While the crosses are being pulled down. The Ten Commandments are being trampled on. The flag and what it traditionally represented, the American flag, a somewhat Christian culture, is promoting death. All these things against that. Death. Bringing in people into our country. Illegal aliens. Death. I'm not against migration. My grandmother was born in Germany. My great-grandfather came from Sweden. I knew both of them. And I have family members, that have immigrated to the United States going all the way back to just shortly after the time of the Pilgrims. That's what made this country great. But these people that are bringing in their ideologies, socialism, Marxism, terrorism, Islam, death, death, death. Yes, I said Islam. That is the epitome of the biblical definition of the spirit of Antichrist. Go read the Quran. I have, cover to cover, and marked it up and published the findings. That is a religion of death. Kill anybody, murder, rape, pillage, steal, lie. In the Quran, anybody that does not convert to Islam. And if they do not convert, the scimitar sword is on their, one of their symbols. By the sword we conquer. Yes, death. So, right now in the United States, we have a lot of so-called college students. A lot of them are paid agitators, paid by the promoters of death, people like George Soros and other billionaire oligarchs that are all for chaos, destruction of the West, to bring in their new world order, Babylon the Great, the Bible calls it. So I've been reading and following in the news. This is now May of 2024. All of these protesters across the United States in these colleges. It started at Columbia, then went to Harvard and Yale and I don't know, wherever, a bunch of colleges back east. And about 3 days, they're promoting anti-Semitism. They're promoting Gaza, free the Philistines or the Palestinians. These fools, by biblical definition, they have no clue. They are literally haters, and they're hating the very society that's giving them an education, or maybe a little more like a brainwashing, and they are literally biting the hand that's feeding them. Many of them have been raised in privileged. If you can go to Harvard and Yale and Columbia, and you can afford to go there, you come from some money, unless you got a scholarship. You come from more of a privileged background because it's not cheap. It's not inexpensive to go to those places. So you come from privilege and blessings. So what is your problem? Have you been to Israel? Do you really know what's going on? Do you know the history? Are you so dumbed down that you don't have a clue? You're just reacting emotionally out of your own ignorance and stupidity. It really came home to me because I live in Oregon. And over 40 years ago, I graduated from Portland State University in downtown Portland, Oregon. 3 generations of my family have gone to that university. My mother went there in the mid-1950s. I went there in the late 70s and early 80s, graduated. I have a son that graduated with a degree in marketing. He works now in the high-tech industry a few years ago. I have another young man in my life who's like a son. He graduated with a teaching degree. He's now a teacher, an English teacher. And I have another son, my youngest of 4 children, who is currently taking classes there, working on his bachelor's degree. I struggled. I studied at 3 universities, and I ended up, the bulk of my time, or most of my time, was at Portland State University, and I graduated there. And it was very leftist back then in 1983 when I graduated. And after 5 years of college, I was so fed up and frustrated with the liberal leftist agendas there. Over 40 years ago, that I decided not to go get my master's degree at the University of Oregon. I was planning to get my master's degree in journalism. And I left, and I never let the door hit me on the way out. Now, as of about 3 days ago, we've got a bunch of wingnut college students that have been occupying the big library there at Portland State University, where I spent many, many days, many hours studying in that library. And they have sprayed graffiti, vandalized the library, set up tents in there. These are the people that say, we're not going to leave the library until Israel stops the Gaza war. Well, finally, Portland was one of these leftist, brain-dead city, the politicians that is, that started defunding the police. Remember, Portland is where the Antifa riots started. And they spread. Well, let's say the modern version, I'm not sure if they actually started in Portland, but Antifa started, that is the modern iteration of Antifa started in Portland. And then after that, the riots broke out. I live about 20 minutes south of Portland, in my backyard. And that's when Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all the clashes with the police, you all heard about it. And then it spread to Seattle and to other places around the country. But this was the epicenter. And that's when the city was trying to defund the police. I mean, you can't make this stupidity up. And now they realize that was a mistake. And so now the police have gone in and are arresting these agitators, these so-called students in the library, and shipping them out. And I don't know what they're going to do with them. But I was looking this morning on some of the news videos of the inside of the library there at Portland State University. And there was a lot of graffiti sprawled or sprayed on the walls. And one of the pictures that struck me, it just infuriated me, actually. There was signs about, stop the war in Gaza and all of this stuff. But there was one graffiti that said love in big letters sprawled on the wall of the library. I thought to myself, love? What on earth is loving about what you're doing, this vandalism and destroying public property that my tax dollars, and maybe even their tax dollars, if they're even working, who knows? Well, probably half of them are grifters. But, it's paying for this. Love? How is hate love? This is the lies. This is the cognitive disconnect with these idiots. And the Democrats and the president and many other people, including many Republicans, and other people in our society, are either silent or they go along with this, acquiescently, or tacit approval. I have to open my mouth. Let me talk about anti-Semitism a little bit. Anti-Semitism ultimately is the spirit of Antichrist. The spirit of Antichrist. Who is behind the hatred of the Jews? It's the devil. Why? Because this book was written by Jews and by other members of the tribes of Israel, which Judah was one. It was written by Israelites. Jesus, Yeshua, was a Jew. Jews believe in the Hebrew scriptures, that is, religious Jews, and there are many Jews that also believe in Yeshua, the Messiah. Hallelujah. And Israel is the homeland of the Jews, and of course, Yeshua is, from the tribe of Judah. And so ultimately, this is a war. This anti-Semitism ultimately is a war against Jewishness, Israel, and Israelites, Christians who also look to Jesus or Yeshua, the Jewish Messiah, and the Bible. And ultimately, behind all of this is the devil, who has been at war with Elohim, with God, with Jesus, who tried to kill him at the cross. He's behind the murder of Christians, of Jews, going all the way back to Bible times. Make no mistake about it. Who is behind these agitators, these anti-Semites? Now look, are all the Jews good people? No. There's some very, very evil Jews, just like there's evil people from every race, ethnicity, religion, culture. It doesn't matter. There are good people and there are evil people everywhere. Some people make a distinction. They say, well, we're not against the Jews, we're against the Zionists. I'm going to have something to say about that in the next video. I'm going to parse this one out. And you Christians out there who say that we're for the Jews, but we're against the Zionists, you don't have a clue. We'll talk about that next. You don't know your Bible. Now, there are a lot of evil Zionists, but there's a much bigger picture, a biblical picture behind this. We'll talk about that in a minute, or 3 or 4. Let me just say to these people that are protesting Israel in Gaza. I have been in Israel and I have been in a rocket attack. And I have been there when there's been a massacre, and I've heard with my own ears the Palestinians, the Arabs, whoever they were, shouting for joy, firing their guns in the air in Jerusalem. I didn't know what they were celebrating about at the time. And that was when, in 2008, that evening, they had the yeshiva massacre, when an Arab employee of a Jewish religious school, a shul, a yeshiva, he was an employee there. He was their chauffeur. And he came in, and they recognized him. He was, Abdul the chauffeur, or what, I don't know what his name was, but, and then he pulled out a gun and he killed, I think it was 9 of them. They were all praying and studying their Bibles and whatever, their religious books. That's the shouting I heard a mile from where I was having dinner. And then a few days later, I'm about a little over a mile from the Gaza fence at Shafir College. You could look across a farmer's field and see the Gaza Strip. It's in Sderot. That's the closest city to the Gaza Strip. And I'm pulling in. I'm with a group of people, and I'm driving a car, and there's several of us in several vehicles. I'm pulling in, and our tour guide says, the sirens went off, and the tour guide says, everybody get out of your car, head for the bomb shelter. And in the middle of the parking lot was a bomb shelter. It looked like a bus shelter, but it was concrete. We all ran in there. There were about, 20 of us or so, 20, 30 of us in this shelter. Several from my group and a bunch of students that were going to this college. And several rockets came. I don't know if it did any damage. I think it might have done some damage. I don't know if anybody was killed. But anyway, it was really kind of freaky. It was really surreal. I'd never been in a war zone in my life. I don't come from a military background. And it was just weird. And so the all clear was sounded, and we came out of the shelter, and I walked up about 300 feet to the first building across the parking lot we came to at this college, this university college, whatever it is. It's called Shapir, I forget the name. It's something like that. You can look it up. It's still there. And I came to the sidewalk in the front of the college, of this particular building, and there was a crater in the sidewalk about this big, where it was a hole about this big, and there was a bloody surgical glove in there, in the hole. And the hole was about this deep. And it was explained to me that 2 weeks earlier, that's where a rocket had landed from the Philistines. And I'm looking at the hole, and I'm trying to understand and grasp this and what it would be like to be living constantly, not knowing, you're going to school, you're a college student or whatever, and you never know when the missiles are going to fly, the rockets or whatever. And then I look down the sidewalk about 50 or 75 feet, and there's a tree right next to the sidewalk. And next to the tree, there's a table with a couple candles burning, and there's some pictures. So I walked over there, several of us walked over, and there was a picture of a man, an older man. He was about my age. He had 4 children, because I remember it because I have 4 children, and he was about my age. And there was a younger person. These people were killed in that rocket attack 2 weeks earlier. And this was a memorial that was set up for them. I was there, I saw it with my own eyes. I don't have a clue. I'm not trying to project something that I don't know. I only experienced that. I don't live there. I haven't lived there. I was only there for a short period of time in Israel. But this is what these people live under, because the Quran tells the diehard Muslims to kill the Jews and to kill the Christians, and that's exactly what they're doing. Yes, go read the Quran. That's what it says to do. Go to my blog at hoshanarabah.org. Click on the blog tab. It'll take you to my blog. Go to the search engine and type in Quran in my blog search engine, and you will pull up my dissertation, my short dissertation, or expose on the Quran with the verses from 3 different versions, translations from Arabic into English. What it says to do with Christians and Jews. That's what they're doing. And these people that are taking an anti-Semitic approach and promoting Gaza and the Palestinians, they are complicit with the murderers, the spirit of Antichrist, and the devil and the spirit of death. Now, am I saying that all the people who live in Gaza are evil? No. There are some Christians that live there. And I would be willing to admit that probably not all the Palestinians that live in Gaza go along with Hamas. There are people that want to just live a normal life, raise their families and work and have a normal life. I'm sure there are. And my heart goes out to those people. But, and some of them are trapped. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I agree with everything that the Israeli government is doing, but I do know, because I keep track of about 30 different news sources, I know that the Israeli government has done everything it can to protect the civilians. Look, if you're too stupid and too idiotic and too racist to go look at the facts, I can't help you. By that time, you probably already turned this video off anyway, so probably nobody's listening who this would fit. But you can go see what the Israelis have done to try to save innocent people that the Palestinian terrorists have hid in the hospitals and the schools. I mean, they have hid themselves, and I mean, it's all there. They're using their people as human shields. They don't care about whether they die or not, because the Quran says if you die, you go to heaven and you get 72 virgins. Yeah, free sex for eternity. Oh yeah, that's a great, incentive. That's Satan, the devil, over-promising and under-delivering, if I ever saw it. But this is what these idiots who blow themselves up and these terrorists, that's what they believe. That's what Intifada is all about. And that's what I saw scrawled on the library of the Portland State University was Intifada. The idiots, the fools, who know nothing except hatred and the devil. Just make sure that you're not on the wrong side of history, the wrong side of the Bible, and the wrong side of truth. That does not mean that everything the Israelis do and the Israeli government is perfect and that all those people are saints. They are not. They are a secular, godless government just like everybody else. But there are a lot of promises in this Bible about what Elohim will do for the Jews and his people in the end times. A lot of empires have tried to stamp out the Jews. Egypt, the Jews and the Israelites. Egypt tried to destroy the Jews, the Egyptians. The Amalekites, the Canaanites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Syrians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, many empires. The Persians, the Romans. You want me to go down the list? The Greeks. And then the Romans. the Catholic Church, the pogroms, the Inquisitions, Hitler, Stalin, Lenin, and now these people. Jehovah's people are still there. All these other people have come and gone. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up. See the reality.